Have you ever wondered why the loudest people are often the first to fall? The ones who feel the need to fill every room with their words, who spill their thoughts without a second thought. When the storm hits, they're the first to break. But why? The answer is simple: silence. Silence isn't just an absence of sound. It's a deliberate and powerful tool. People often mistake it for weakness or fear. They think if you don't clap back, you're scared. If you're quiet, you must be broken. But that's where they're wrong. Silence isn't fear, it's focus. It isn't surrender, it's calculation. The ones who say nothing are the ones building something. They are waiting. And when they finally act, it's swift and precise, clean, with no mess and no noise, just results. You may have been hurt, betrayed, lied to, and your first instinct is to scream, to expose them, to make sure the whole world knows what they did. But you don't owe them your voice. You don't owe them your pain. The more you talk, the more power you give them. The more you explain yourself, the more they have to twist your words. Your real strength grows in silence. You sit with the pain, you let it break you in private, and then you rise in silence. There are no announcements, no warnings. You just show up different and they are left speechless. Every word you speak reveals a part of your blueprint. Your mind, your heart, your fears, and your plans. You might think you're just venting or being authentic, but to others you're handing out the very information they need to exploit you. They don't want to understand you. They want to use you. So why give them a single sound? Why let them read your script when you can make them guess every single scene? The silent ones are the ghosts that haunt every fake friend and every traitor. When you disappear and stop explaining, they start to panic. Your absence becomes louder than any scream. They thought your silence meant you lost, that you gave up. What they didn't know was that you were rebuilding in the dark. You were observing, learning patterns, not just about them, but about yourself. This is what silence gives you: clarity, time, and the space to dissect your pain without performing it for an audience. You don't heal by constantly talking about your scars. You heal by quietly stitching the wound shut. And when the work is done, you don't need to show it off. You carry it as a reminder of what you overcame. Remember, silence is the most honest response. You don't need to defend yourself to anyone who has already decided to misunderstand you. You don't need to beg someone to see your worth. If they needed noise to notice you, they were never truly listening in the first place. So stop performing. Stop explaining. Master your silence and you will become unstoppable. Stop talking. Let them assume, let them create their theories and get lost in their own assumptions. While they're busy talking, you'll be busy building in the shadows. The moment you step back into the light, they won't even recognize you. They'll pretend they always believed in you, but you'll know the truth. You'll remember who watched you break and stayed silent. This is why you won't need revenge. You'll have already won. You'll be 10 steps ahead, and they'll still be stuck, wondering what happened to you. Stay quiet, but never weak. Be calm, but never passive. Observe more, speak less. Let your silence starve those who thrived on your energy. Move like smoke, unpredictable, with no trace and no warning. When they ask what happened to you, just smile. The most potent revenge isn't loud or chaotic. It's silent, clean, and cold. They don't teach you this in school. They teach you to be open, to be vulnerable. But they don't teach you when to shut up, when to step back, and when to lock the door to your own world. Silence, real silence, is the most powerful stage of your life. It's the silence that comes after betrayal and heartbreak. It's where warriors are forged and where you become unstoppable. You don't become unstoppable by screaming your story to the world. You become unstoppable by learning to walk through hell with a zipped lip and a mind sharper than any blade that cut you. You stop reacting. You stop answering. You stop defending. Instead, you observe, you plan, and you level up in silence. They will mock your silence at first. They'll call it weakness. They'll say you disappeared, that you gave up. Let them. That's part of the illusion. The trap you're setting. You let them believe you're gone until you're not. Until you show up with a version of you they never expected. A version they can't manipulate, can't lie to, and can't hurt. A quiet person sees everything. They remember everything. They just choose to stop talking. Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt like a ghost, not because they ignored you, but because you saw them for who they really were? That's the first stage of power. It's when their words become meaningless and your silence feels like a strength. When their drama is just background noise and your peace is non-negotiable, this is your moment of separation, your rebirth. And it hurts. At first, this silence is brutal because you have nowhere to put your pain. You realize the world isn't built to catch you when you fall. It's built to applaud when you hit the ground. And that's when your silence becomes your armor. It's no longer just silence, it's detachment, protection, and control. You decide who earns your voice, and very few people will. You might think you owe explanations to people who never even bothered to check if you were okay. You might think your silence needs to be justified. It doesn't. You owe them nothing. No closure, no last word, no text. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them wonder if you're okay. Let them feel the absence of the version of you they took for granted. Revenge isn't about shouting back. Real revenge is making them irrelevant. It's making them talk to a wall of silence, knowing they'll never get access to you again. Want to win? Don't block them or curse them. Outgrow them, and do it all without saying a single word. They prepare for a war and you give them a disappearance. Have you ever seen someone start to fall apart when you stop reacting to their chaos? That's the silent kill. When you pull back your energy, their whole identity crumbles. They only knew how to survive off the attention you gave them. When you go quiet, they start screaming into the void, hoping you'll come back to fight. Don't let them. Let them choke on your silence. Let them destroy themselves trying to figure out why you stopped performing for them. You're done explaining. You're done giving. Now it's time to own your power. From now on, you move differently. Walk into every room with your energy wrapped in armor. Let your silence speak for you. When they ask what's wrong with you, don't answer. Not because you can't, but because they haven't earned the privilege of your voice anymore. Your silence isn't just about shutting your mouth, it's about knowing your worth. You don't need to explain loyalty to snakes or justify your heart to cowards. You don't bleed in front of people who laugh at your pain. Let them think you've changed. Let them gossip and label you cold, arrogant, and heartless. Good. Let them. Because the person you are becoming doesn't need their approval. They need results, peace, and power, and none of that lives in the noise. The truly great don't shout, they move in silence, they disappear, then return as legends, ghosts of their old selves. That's the path you're on now. Stop whispering to those who stopped listening a long time ago. Let your silence finish what your loyalty started. Here's the hard truth. Many people only stayed in your life because you kept explaining yourself. You softened your tone, justified your heart, and proved your intentions as if your soul were on trial. You begged to be understood by people who were committed to misunderstanding you. This is the trap. You thought if you said the right thing, they'd finally get it, but all you did was teach them how to hurt you better. You spoke from your scars, and they took notes. You showed them your blueprint, and they used it to break. You silence is your survival. It is sacred. You stop giving them ammunition, you stop handing them pieces of yourself to tear apart. You stop performing for an audience that claps for your pain and vanishes during your healing. Silence is refusing to be dissected. It might feel unnatural at first. You'll want to scream your side of the story, but they aren't listening. They're just waiting to twist your words. You've noticed how they only hear the parts that help their own narrative. It's not that they don't understand, they don't want to. To understand would mean admitting they were wrong. It would force them to face their own reflection, and people don't like mirrors when they are the monster in it. So they blame you. They call you dramatic, sensitive, and toxic, all because you finally stood up and shut up. Let them call you names. Every time they do, they reveal what they fear most, the version of you they can no longer control. Silence will change you. It will rewire your brain. At first, it hurts. You'll feel a void and replay everything, wishing for one last conversation to make things right. But with time, that craving will die. You'll realize how pointless it was. You'll discover that most conversations aren't for healing, they're for ego. You wanted closure, but what you needed was distance. You wanted to be heard, but what you needed was peace. And silence gives you both. It's the fire that burns away the fake and the clarity that exposes the lies. You'll stop chasing apologies, love, and explanations. You'll simply stop chasing. That's when you win. When you stop reacting to their chaos you'll see a shift. In their eyes, a panic, a confusion. That's the silence working. They were addicted to the version of you that bled in front of them, but now you don't bleed where they can see. You've taken back your power, and they don't know what to do. With that, you hurt quietly, you heal privately, you move secretly, and the more silent you become, the more they start to crumble. Not because you said anything, but because you said nothing. That silence is heavy. It echoes, it haunts. Silence forces them to remember every lie, every betrayal, and every cruel word they threw at you. Now they have no distraction from their own guilt, which will eat them alive in the quiet you left behind. Have you noticed how loud silence becomes for a guilty person? It screams in their head. It chokes them. They thought you'd beg. They thought you'd break, but you simply vanished. You let your silence carry your rage, your grief, and your scars. And that silence is louder than any form of revenge, louder than tears, louder than anger. You don't need to make a scene or prove anything anymore, because the person they played with is gone. What walks now is the silence, cold, clean, and calculated. When they try to come back with fake apologies, your silence will be your answer. No response, no closure, just a complete absence. That's how you win. Quietly, completely, and without mercy. Don't mistake silence for weakness. The silence I'm talking about is final and deliberate. It's a funeral for the version of you that pleaded, stayed loyal to those who didn't deserve it, and offered your heart to people who used it against you. This silence isn't about self-control, it's about self-respect. You're not silent because you're scared to speak. You're silent because there's nothing left to say. They heard you cry and didn't flinch. You offered your heart and they turned it into leverage. Now you offer them nothing. Not a word, not a sigh, not a hint of what's going on inside you. Just silence, cold, sharp, and eternal. Talking is a currency. Every word you speak spends a piece of yourself, your thoughts, your energy, your clarity. So who are you spending it on? People who never earned it? People who only show up when it benefits them? People who watched you drown and now want a front row seat to your comeback? No. You speak to build, not to waste. You speak when it matters. And until then, you stay silent. You watch, you listen. You let them show you exactly who they are without giving them anything of who you are. This is how you survive. This is how you evolve. Every word you don't say becomes another brick in the wall they will never climb. The fake ones will panic when you go silent. They will try to fill the void you left with drama and lies. Your silence exposes their noise. They wanted access, not understanding. Control, not connection. But once you cut the cord, they realize how heavy your silence truly is. They used to mock you when you were around, but now that you're quiet, they can't stop talking about you. That's the real win. You let them have the last word, but you stole the last thought. You haunt their minds by saying absolutely nothing. People think being loud makes you memorable, but it only makes you predictable. It exposes your hand and shows your cards, and they are not playing fair. They are watching, recording, and remembering everything you say so they can weaponize it. Later, you think bleeding the truth will set you free, but in a world built on lies, the truth gets you crucified. So what do? You stop. You starve them. You go dark. No warnings, no dramatic breakdowns, just silence. Let them choke on the questions they never cared to ask when you were still answering. Let them sit with the version of themselves that only existed because you were feeding them your light. Now that your light is gone, they are left with their own shadows, and that is a punishment you don't need to speak to deliver. Every person who has ever truly risen learned the art of silence first. Kings don't scream. Legends don't explain. Ghosts don't beg to be seen. They become the silence. They let their absence speak volumes. Their focus cuts deeper than any words ever could. If you want peace, go silent. If you want clarity, go silent. If you want power, go silent. You are not running away, you are ascending. You are shedding the skin they used to recognize you. And when they see you again, they won't. Not really. Because the version of you they betrayed, doubted, and laughed at is dead. The new you doesn't talk, doesn't ask, doesn't explain. He just moves. And when he moves, everything else falls silent. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the Death of access. It's the funeral for every bridge they burned, thinking you would rebuild it anyway. It's you standing in the ashes of everything they took for granted and deciding, I'm done playing savior to people who drown themselves. It is brutal, cold, and unforgiving, and it's the only thing they truly respect. They didn't hear your love, your kindness, or your endless efforts to prove your loyalty. They only hear loss when your silence walks in and your presence walks out. That's when they feel the price. Not when you screamed or cried or tried to explain your heart one last time. That was just noise to them. Silence is the consequence. It's the echo of everything they ignored now haunting them in every empty moment they used to fill with your energy. That's when it hits them. That's when they realize you were the most real thing they ever had. And they let it slip through their fingers. People don't remember the noise, they remember the silence that follows. The empty space where your voice used to live. That quiet void no one else can fill because no one else is you. That is what keeps them up at night. Not your words, but the fact that you stopped offering them. You walked away without the drama, without the goodbye, without the closure they were sure they would get. They were so arrogant they thought you would be the same person tomorrow. But silence makes it final. And when that silence stretches into days, weeks, and months, they realize you weren't bluffing. You weren't playing hard to get. You were simply gone. And suddenly, everything they laughed at becomes sacred. Every word you said echoes louder in your absence than it ever did in your presence. Most people don't love you. They love the version of you that serves them. They love your yes, your energy, your attention, and your willingness to explain yourself. But the moment you pull back and say nothing, their love rots, because it was never love. It was consumption. They were feeding off you, and you kept feeding them because you thought they were worth starving for. Silence taught you a truth that love never could, the difference between being seen and being used. Now that you've seen it, you can't unsee that. You can't go back to bleeding in front of people who flinch at the sight of your pain. You can't go back to explaining your soul to people who don't even listen when you say you're not okay. When the people who once had constant access to you start throwing shade once you go quiet, that's not arrogance, that's fear. They'll act like you're bitter or petty, but deep down they're scared because your silence exposes their behavior. It forces them to look in a mirror they aren't ready for. They liked the version of you that excused their mistakes, but this new silent version reflects every wrong they did without you saying a word. This is your revenge, not a fire, not noise, just distance. Here's the darkest part of it all. Some of the people you love the most will realize what they've lost too late. Not when you leave, but when they see you start to glow in your own solitude. When they see the peace that comes from no longer carrying their weight. They will realize your silence wasn't an absence, it was a transformation. You didn't go quiet because you were broken. You went quiet because you were becoming, and when they finally come back, you won't even need to say no. You'll be so far removed, so elevated, that your silence will say it for you. It will be louder than any rejection you could have given with words. Let them hear that silence. Let them feel it. Let it echo in the void they created when they took your voice for granted. You may feel alone in this silence, but you aren't. The strongest, most dangerous people are the ones who stopped speaking and started listening, not to others, but to the voice inside themselves that was drowned out by noise for too long. That voice is your guide now. That silence is your battleground. Don't run from it. Sit in it. Breathe it. Learn from it. When the time comes, let your actions speak. Let your energy speak. Let your glow-up speak. But you stay silent, because the loudest power is the one that never had to announce itself. Most people think silence is a waiting room, a pause between explosions. They believe that eventually things will go back to how they were. But real silence isn't a timeout, it's a transformation. It changes your wiring and your thresholds. You stop needing to be validated or heard. You grow beyond it. And that growth is lonely and terrifying, because when you stop talking, the only voice left is your own. That voice is raw and honest. It forces you to face the truth. You allowed too much, gave too much, and stayed too long. There's no one left to blame but yourself. It's just you in the wreckage. but that's where true power begins. In the wreckage. When you rebuild in silence, you aren't rebuilding for others. You are rebuilding for yourself. And that new structure, that new mindset, has no doors for the people who tore you down. You were addicted to explaining yourself, weren't you? In every conversation, every argument, every betrayal, you felt the need to prove your side. You thought, if they just saw how much you cared, they'd stop hurting you. But you were just putting a target on your back. You showed them where you cared, and they used it as a map to strike. Explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds isn't strength. It's a form of self-betrayal. It's begging for understanding from people who are committed to misunderstanding you because it gives them control. They wanted you to be loud, reactive, and emotional because that meant they still mattered. But when you went silent, you stripped that power away. You stopped giving them a reflection of themselves, and without that mirror, they will crumble. The world doesn't clap for silence, but it respects it. It studies it. People panic when the quiet ones start moving because the loud ones talk about what they're going to do while the silent ones just do it. No previews, no updates, no drama, just results. You might think silence is about being cold, but it's about being calculated. You stop responding not because you don't feel anymore, but because you feel too much. You have learned that not everyone deserves access to the depth of your emotions. You've stopped showing your heart, not because it's gone, but because it's finally guarded. You've stopped defending yourself because you've realized that the truth doesn't need a defense. It stands alone just like you, and it's a strange thing to watch the same people who told you to shut up now constantly ask what's wrong. The ones who said you were too sensitive now claim you're too distant. They weren't ready for this new silent version of you, the version that doesn't entertain nonsense or get pulled back into old games, the version that doesn't need to be seen to be dangerous. They wanted you to be emotional because emotions made you predictable, but now you are unpredictable. They can't provoke you or bait you because you aren't there. You're not playing, you're not speaking. And when someone loses your voice, they realize just how loud your presence used to be. You gave them your words and they didn't listen. So now you give them silence and let that echo through their hollow world. Your silence isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you start writing a new one without letting them hold the pen. You are no longer here to be loud. You are here to be undeniable, quiet, focused, relentless. When they finally wonder what happened to you, the silence will answer. Not with pity, not with noise, but with distance. And that distance is louder than anything you could have ever said. Most people will never admit this, but the moment you stop speaking is the moment they start listening. But by then it's too late. Your silence isn't an invitation, it's a verdict, a wall they will never climb again. You gave them your time, your clarity, and your trust until it broke you. Now, you give them nothing, not out of hate or spite, but because silence is the only language they truly understand. You're no longer trying to fix anything. You're not trying to be seen, heard, or rescued. You've accepted the truth. Not everyone who had a seat at your table deserved a plate. Your silence is you flipping that table. It's you saying no more. And the most beautiful part is you don't have to scream it, explain it, or get closure. Your stillness becomes the closure. Your absence becomes the lesson. And whether they admit it or not, they'll feel it every single day. You become truly dangerous when your peace is no longer negotiable. When you stop responding just because someone wants a reaction. When you stop showing up just because they remembered you exist. When you stop proving your worth and start living like it's already a given. That's when you become a storm in silence. Don't expect them to applaud your growth. They'll act confused and try to drag you back into the noise. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, but you know better. You're not cold. You're calm. You're not heartless. You just stopped handing your heart to people who played with it. You're not bitter. You're just awake. You see the game, the masks, the manipulation, and instead of confronting it, you choose the most lethal move of all. Distance. A version of you died the day you chose silence over chaos. That old you, the one who always explained, always reached out first, and always forgave too fast, is buried now. The world might miss that old version, but you won't. That person was constantly exhausted, anxious, and pouring from a cup that was never full. That version was loved for the wrong reasons, because he was convenient and accessible, because he made other people feel better about themselves. This new, silent version doesn't play those roles anymore. He doesn't show up for applause or seek validation. He moves for himself, and that solitude isn't empty, it's earned. You'll see it in their eyes when you walk past them like they don't exist. That flicker of panic is because silence changes the way they see you. They used to see someone who would never walk away, someone they could toy with, and who would always come back to explain why they were hurt. But now they see a ghost, a memory, and that memory is louder than your presence ever was. That's what silence gives you, a legacy. You become the one who walked away and never looked back. The one they talk about but can never reach. The one they try to decode, but whose language no longer exists because you evolved beyond it. They are still trying to play chess while you've already left the board. They are not prepared for what you've become. They thought your silence was a retreat that you crawled away to lick your wounds. But what they don't know is that in that silence, you were studying, not just them, but yourself. You were cutting away weakness like rot from your own flesh. You were reshaping the way you think, move, and see everything. Silence didn't make you smaller. It made you sharper, colder, wiser. Now you are not reacting. You are choosing. Every move is deliberate. Every word is calculated. Every presence in your life is earned. You don't hand out energy like it's free anymore. You don't waste your breath on dead conversations or argue with people who are committed to missing the point. You don't explain your worth to people too blind to see it. Now you know who you are, and that knowing came from silence, from stillness, from looking in the mirror and not running from what stared back. You aren't a victim anymore. You aren't a product of what they did. You are the architect of what comes next. And they hate that. They hate that you didn't stay broken, soft, or available. Your silence proved they were never necessary. Now they'll do anything to get a reaction, to feel important again. They'll talk about you, lie about you, and try to provoke you. But you've outgrown the need to respond. You let them say whatever helps them sleep at night. You let them scream into the void. And while they do, you keep building. Quietly, strategically, alone. Silence doesn't just protect your peace, it multiplies it. People always expect explosions. They think power is loud, angry, and chaotic. But they forget that the deadliest storms come without warning. No thunder, no lightning, just wind and destruction. Just silence before everything changes. That's who you are now. A silent storm. They'll laugh until they choke and mock until they can't breathe. When they finally realize what's happening and your silence becomes unbearable, they'll try to claw their way back in. They'll promise they've changed and that they're sorry. And maybe some of them will be, but it doesn't matter because you are no longer in the business of recycling pain. You are not here to re-teach the lessons you bled for. You're not giving second chances to people who wasted the first one. You're not making space at your table for those who left you starving. They'll say you're cold, heartless, and unforgiving. Let them. You didn't get here by being soft. You got here by surviving every time they tried to kill your spirit. You got here by going silent when it would have been easier to scream. You got here by walking away from things you once prayed for. You're not cold. You're precise. You're not heartless. You're intentional. You are dangerous in a way they will never understand because they only know how to fight with noise. They only know how to win by dragging you into arguments and forcing you to prove your truth. But you don't do that anymore. You fight with results, with elevation, with absence. Nothing is scarier than a person who disappears in silence and returns in power. So stay quiet, stay distant, and stay unpredictable. Let your silence speak the volumes your words never could. Let it echo through every space you've left behind. Let it haunt the ones who took you for granted. Let it speak for the pain you no longer perform. When they finally understand what they lost, when it clicks that you're never coming back as you were, they'll want to talk. They'll want to fix it. They'll want closure. But you will already be gone. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Your silence will have already buried what they're trying to resurrect. You'll watch them beg for a response from a version of you that no longer exists. That is the silence. That changes everything. That is your legacy. Speak it with your stillness,